Welcome, folks, to the latest edition of Player Profiler today, airing live on this fine Wednesday, June 26th. I'm your host, Mike Lindberg, Senior Analyst for the Player Profiler News Desk. It's my pleasure to guide you through today's top stories and insights right here every Wednesday. Today, I have a special guest, Zach Schultz. Schultzy from the News Desk is here to talk ball and current NFL news. So without further ado, let's dive right into action and get this show started off with our top story, and that is the Jaguars breakdown. So we're going to start off here with Trevor Lawrence, the former number one overall pick of the 2021 draft. Will stay with the Jacksonville Jaguars. We talked about that last week in depth after signing that 5-year extension worth $275 million with $200 million guaranteed. Lawrence had a rocky start to his career after Urban Meyer's horrendous but thankfully short-lived tenure as the head coach. This is an excellent deal for both player and team as they continue to grow with Lawrence. Lawrence's own injuries along with his offensive line had him hamstrung his production last season. This new investment in the offensive line and at wide receiver, look for Lawrence to have his best season yet, in my opinion. Let's get Schultzy's take on Trevor's new contract. Schultzy is a die-hard Jags fan, so this is the perfect day to bring him into action. Schultzy, what do you say about Trevor Lawrence?
I've got nothing but great things to say about Trevor Lawrence. I love Trevor Lawrence. But, obviously, you mentioned I'm a Jags fan. You can see it right behind me here. It's all over. But I'm going to talk about this, somewhat objectively on the contract side. Then I'll get into some takes about him. But perfect. Contract side alone, you're looking at the extension with him, and then you're going to have Tua, Dak, and Love. Like, this group of four guys has kind of been the next, group of contracts. Why is Balky and the team getting zero credit for being the first one to sign? Everyone says, oh, they just paid Trevor so much. How much did they just save by being the first one to sign out of this group? Because now this is the table-setting deal everyone looks at and says, I want more than that. So the dominoes, by the time the four quarterbacks fall, the fourth quarterback's going to be making a lot, a decent amount more than Trevor's deal is. So where's the credit for the both camps getting this done and essentially saving the Jags some money? Number two, his base salary this year is $1.05 million because he just took a massive bonus, signing bonus this year. Next year, it's the fifth-year option, $25.6 million. So it's not even that bad next year. And by 2028, the highest cap hit percentage he's going to have on the team is 14.1%, which is nothing for a quarterback still. A lot of teams are still paying dudes into the 20 to 22, 23% there. So, even by 2028, the contract is still good. And he's only 25 years old.
Yeah, that's a great contract, in my opinion. Like you said, he's setting the market now. There's going to be a lot more dominoes that are going to fall. Some bigger contracts as well are definitely going to fall down the hill here. And I think Trevor Lawrence's deal is a great deal for the Jags in the long term. I see big things for Trevor Lawrence this year. I've been on record saying I think this is his bounce back year. I think he's going to finish as a top 10 quarterback. Borderline top 10 quarterback if he could stay healthy, obviously. But with the weapons and another year within that Doug Peterson offense, I just think it's going to be very, very good for that whole team in general. Let's move on to the next part of their offense, and we're going to talk about the running backs. And there has been some word that Tank Bigsby was kind of gaining some steam here, but now he's been struggling with drops, and it's continuing this offseason despite earlier indications that the Jaguars aim to increase his involvement. The excitement surrounding Bigsby seems to be waning now, following reports that the Jaguars' intentions to expand his role in the upcoming season. His issues include drops, leading to interceptions, was affected to his report with Trevor Lawrence. Meanwhile, Travis Etienne is poised for another significant role in the Jacksonville Jaguars offense. benefiting from anticipated improvements to that offensive line, notably the addition of Pro Bowl center Mitch Morse. Fantasy managers should consider targeting Etienne in trades, especially from those still worried about Tank Bigsby's potential impacting workload. What are your thoughts? Are you looking at Travis Etienne as a target in drafts? What do you think about his season? What do you think about the Jags season in general in that backfield? Are you optimistic about it? Do you think they're going to get in that red zone a bit more and convert there?
Yes, I do. Definitely got more of a Trevor spiel that I want to get out there, but more takey. I got the objectiveness out of the way, so now I get to have some takes. As far as the backfield goes, I think it's going to be similar. Like ETN is that guy, and it's been 2 years straight that he's been awesome. His missed tackle numbers are just off the charts constantly, despite having a crap offensive line. That should be improved. The passing game is going to be improved, opening up more for him. Yes, they keep talking about Tank Bigsby this, Tank Bigsby that. He's probably going to get some work, and they're probably saying it because they do want to spell ETM some, but I don't think it's going to be like this massive timeshare like a lot of people think.
Yeah, I mean, like last year, he got steamed up, and obviously that fell short. Yeah, he might have burn himself a better role this year, but I can't see that turning into anything fruitful, even for fantasy football at this stage. But let's get back to your Trevor Lawrence take then, because you talked about the unbiased opinion. Now let's talk about maybe a bias side for yourself there, Chelsea.
Okay, so one thing I hear, I feel like there's a ton of misguided narrative and opinions about Trevor that, like I said, are misguided, and it is a little frustrating because this is like what Jaguars fans deal with, people not paying attention to us, and so that's where it comes from. Because hey, we're good, so give us some credit finally. But it's like, people say he hasn't earned it, right? How? That's what I want to say. This team was a mess with Urban, like you mentioned, last in the division. He takes them from last in the division, absolute mess of a team, to winning the division and then having back-to-back winning seasons. This is the Jaguars we're talking about. Before Trevor got there, there's one winning season since 2007, and he just did it back-to-back years. That's like the definition of putting the team on your back and elevating what's going on here, right? He won 6 of 7 games to end 2022, won the division, followed it up with a 28-point playoff win against the Chargers. He even took your Chiefs, gave them a scare at Arrowhead the following week. He absolutely carried the team the second half of that season. 3 double-digit point comebacks that weren't even the playoff one. So if you include that, he had 4 double-digit point comebacks in 2022 alone. He was so good that a lot of us were convinced, and I say us as football fans in general, that this Jaguars team was a legitimate Super Bowl contender. And once the injuries happened to Trevor, they completely fell apart. Is that not what a franchise quarterback is? Like, he has completely elevated everyone around him. He started 8-3 before the injuries piled up. And in that span, second half of 22, beginning of 23, he's got a 15-4 record, including the playoffs. So it's like, how has he not earned it? You want to look at on Twitter, this guy, the Ryan Michael. He's been on fire with the Trevor stuff recently. He posted, he says the NFL leaders in execution games. Execution game is when you have 100+ passer rating on 30+ attempts, a 70+ completion percentage with no interceptions, all in the same game. So you're efficient on volume and you're not screwing up at all. He leads the league in the past 2 years with 8 of those games. Second place has 5. That is your definition of taking the game over and winning it yourself. Isn't that what a franchise quarterback is? Right? Like, so how has he not earned this? That's my biggest question. You look at him compared to the other dudes. 2 is 0-1 in the playoffs and was hardly completed 50% of his passes. The dude crumbles when things aren't perfect. He's a lot of people are talking product of the system. I agree with that. Massive talent around him. 2-7 against playoff teams in December and January. 9 of his 32 victories are against winning teams. That's it. You look at Dak, 2-5 in the playoffs, and he's been pretty good, but he's been surrounded with crazy talent his whole career. Jordan Love, we're going to give him the benefit of the doubt. He looks like he's going to be the real deal. But the point is, the surrounding talent here with these other guys too, it's been off the charts better than Trevor. 2022, he elevated a 32-year-old Marvin Jones and then brought back a Zay Jones out of resurgence like the freaking Undertaker. Last year, and he gave career years to Kirk and Engram as well. Last year, he had negative 37.8 EPA to drops alone, and that led the league. PFF ranked this Jaguars team as the 30th ranked supporting cast in 2023. He has not had good, overall talent around him, and he's stinking one. How has he not earned this?
Yeah, and he has earned it. And like you said, and I'm going to say it in a roundabout way, he used 2022, the end of that season, lights out, got injured in 2023. That's explaining it all to me anyways. And they've made nothing but improvements to his offensive line, and they've added weapons around him like Gabe Davis and Brian Thomas. Two burners on the outside, like you always seem to mention. They're going to open up the game within the middle of that field for guys like Evan Engram and Christian Kirk to eat. They're going to have red zone capabilities now with those two big guys on the outside that could probably catch the ball in the red zone, and they've been lacking that all these last 2 years. I think that's the only thing they're lacking from being a legit contender in the AFC. And if Trevor Lawrence can stay healthy and upright, and they will eat this year. I like that take, Schultz.
It wasn't even one thing with him too. It was like ankle, bad knee, concussion, shoulder. I mean, it was a load of injuries.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, we have the FFPC spring promo going on right now, so let's hear from the Podfather and let's get it done.
Hey, why do we partner with the FFPC? Because they have the widest variety of fantasy football formats, and it's the easiest place to find all types of fantasy football contests in the world. What if you want to play for high stakes? Well, they have a $6 million prize pool with their Fantasy Players Championship. They also have way too early best ball leagues that start in February and dynasty leagues. They have the closest thing to a liquid market for orphans that there is in all of Dynasty. And the FFPC has sponsored us for half a decade because we are actually delivering information that can help fantasy gamers, and they're generating so much interest and bringing in so many new users, casual users even. The FFPC creates a unique experience where you can both compete against the best and make money. Use promo code UNDERWORLD to get $25 off your first team. $25 off your first team at the FFPC with promo code UNDERWORLD. Go get it!
Let's go. All right, Chelsea, let's move on to the wide receivers. I kind of had a little segue to that in that last segment there when we were talking about, Trevor Lawrence and recapping that aspect there. But we got Christian Kirk, Brian Thomas Jr., the rookie coming in, and the free agent signing of Gabe Davis. What do you think about this receiving room for one? How do you rank these Jags receivers? Who's going to get the ball and at what times?
So I was looking at some ADPs, and you got Kirk or 30-ish, Brian Thomas 50-ish, and Davis 60-ish. Now that's wide receiver ranking. That's how I'd rank them, and going forward here, at least this year. Kirk is going to feast underneath with, you mentioned, the speed on the outside. The injury to him last year was also pretty bad for the offense just because of how effective and important he is to this team and the scheme. So I still love Kirk. I think getting him around wide receiver 30 this year is an absolute bargain in any format because he's going to get targets and receptions. So half PPR, full PPR, great boost. But even in regular, I think there's going to be more room for him to work. So some of those touches might be more effective. Brian Thomas and Gabe Davis, I like Brian Thomas a little better. I think they're ranked pretty fairly. I would bump them both up maybe 5-ish slots in my rankings just because I'm higher on Trevor. So therefore that has to ripple other places, right? So I would probably put them a little higher as well. But they're going to be really tough from week to week, I think. I don't think Brian Thomas is going to be this like CD Lamb or like Justin Jefferson. He's not going to be that, that X receiver that comes in, just dominates the game and gets 15 targets a game. That's just not who he is. And that's fine because of what the player they're going to ask him to be is different. They're not, what I mean? So they're not going to ask that out of him. But with that said, it's just going to not be the typical X receiver funnel like some teams have. And they're both going to be great deep options, going to have blow up games, great best ball options. They're just going to be tough to predict week to week.
Yeah, I guess the most consistent performer there is going to be Christian Kirk. He probably will have that steady baseline target share and minimum targets. I'm interested to see how Brian Thomas shakes into that lineup and what they're going to do with Gabe Davis, because I could easily see those two being switched in ADP and Gabe Davis being the veteran, getting a little bit more wear out of the gate here until Brian Thomas can kind of get his role within that system. But Brian Thomas, they use some significant draft capital on him, so I can see him getting into the lineup right away and starting. So yeah, good breakdown. Now let's get your input on another big name receiver. Well, not really a receiver, but a guy that has, getting wide receiver 1 targets, if you know what I mean. And that's Evan Engram, who had 143 targets last year, and he quietly finished as the tight end 2 in most formats. He was overshadowed by guys like Sam Laporta, the resurgence of Trey McBride, especially in the last half of the season, and the slide of Travis Kelce took a bunch of headlines away from how great Engram was in 2023. But now, headed into 2024, with new weapons around Trevor Lawrence, you think Evan Engram will still be a focal point of the Jags offense moving forward, or will he be a victim of negative regression?
Yes to both, to be honest. I see a little bit of regression, maybe target wise, just because the number of mouths to feed. But like same thing with Kirk is, I think some of his underneath stuff is going to be more effective just because of the speed you're going to have to respect. So maybe targets are down, but overall quality of targets might be better. He's still going to be a top 5 tight end to me. He's still going to hit 100 targets. Like I don't think he's going to drop that far. So you're still looking at that, range of tight ends who get in that 100 plus, where it's like, these are the dudes you want for sure to be your tight end 1. So I don't think he's slipping out of in danger of slipping out of that territory by any means.
Yeah. And just because he may not get as many targets, having better protection in front of Trevor Lawrence might mean those targets are going to be a little bit more catchable, especially if you say that it is going to open up on the outside with these burners. Those catchable targets are going to be a little bit easier for him to get. So he may end up with the same amount of receptions and just maybe be targeted a little bit less in that offense. But I still think Evan Engram is going to be a smash play. He's getting, critically undervalued in a lot of drafts, especially in dynasty startups where I'm seeing him go right now. And a guy that finished as a tight end 2, he's still got a little bit left in the tank. I'd say a couple years here. He's still got, I think, next year left on his contract still too, like up until after 2025. So that's 2 solid years. They paid him last year, and I think that's a really good call there, Schultze. All right. Let's move on to the next segment. And Schultze, you are a member of the news desk for Player Profiler, and you've been with us for a couple months now. Tell the folks, what you do for us, where you can find your stuff, and kind of what you got on the horizon right now.
All right. Well, yeah. I mean, with the news desk, just every once in a while, I'll be writing some of those blurbs. You'll catch me on some YouTube shorts. Whatever needs done to help out. It's a growing thing, and we're trying to hit that 500 subs, man. We're getting close, and it's just an awesome project to be a part of, and it's going to have some good things here in the future. Yeah.
Yeah, so like Schulte said, is like our YouTube channel is gaining a lot of steam. It wasn't created too long ago, so we're getting upwards of 500 subscriptions. So if we can hit that mark before July hits, that would be really awesome. So everybody out there, be sure to hit that bell and subscribe to our stuff, because that would be a really good check mark to have on our plate, and especially heading into the latter months of the summer here. Schulte, anything else to say about yourself? You got anything else on the go?
Well, I mean, producing a couple podcasts with your honor here, appreciate you.
Yeah, you too, buddy.
Fantasy Forecast and Pulse,
Yeah.
producing them, making appearances with you guys. That's been awesome. So yeah, go check that out.
Yeah, Schultze's been a great part of the news desk, and he's a great behind the scenes guy, and he's starting to make his mark in front of the camera. So it's really important to get him on the show and give him a little taste of the live action and the player profiler today news desk, because he's an integral part of that news desk, and we want to make sure he's being visible as well. So thanks, Schulte, for joining us today. Let's move on with some more news here. Let's get into some other headlines. And a lot of Falcons are looking for a backup behind Drake London, and some people are saying it's Ray McLeod. They're facing a lot of depth challenges at wide receiver this offseason, prompting attention toward an emerging talent like Ray McLeod. As OTAs unfold, McLeod has seized opportunities with the first-team offense, showcasing his potential with several impactful receptions from quarterback Kirk Cousins. Amidst offseason moves that include Darnell Mooney's lucrative signing and the acquisition of Rondale Moore, the Falcons' receiving core is undergoing strategic adjustments. Recently, rookie Casey Washington has also garnered attention for his involvement across multiple offensive units in dynasty leagues between McLeod and Washington as potential late-round pickups. The momentum favors Washington currently to his growing role and potential upside. What's your take, Schulte, on this, Atlanta Falcon wide receiver room? Who's going to be the backups? Who's going to see the field? We already know that Drake London is a shoe in there, and we already know that Kyle Pitts is going to be highly involved. What do you think this is? You think it's just more smoke? They obviously brought in, Rondale Moore for a reason, and Darnell Mooney. So I can't see this being more than just, some stuff that we have to talk about to get us through this, off season.
Right. I mean, there's got to be a little bit of merit for a guy in Washington's position to draw public praise like that. Like, it's not like it's a coach saying this about the first round, second round receiver. So I think there's a little bit of something there. If I'm going to try and stash a guy or go for someone in fantasy, it's Washington, because look, we know what Ray McLeod is, and he's going to touch the ball some, and he's going to make a couple plays that's going to pop up on red zone that are going to be, oh, that was awesome. And that's Ray McLeod, and that's fine. But in the fantasy world, it's not fine. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So let's move on to some other growing news. And Lucas Kroll's growing role with the Denver Broncos offense is set to play a bigger role in 2024. He, had a good surge at the end of last year with Greg Dulcich sidelined from practice for an extended period of time. Kroll's chance to take over first-team duties in Dulcich's absence shows he's becoming more of a crucial to the team strategy. Coach Sean Payton praises during his OTAs, highlighting his impressive 6'6" frame and speed. Looking at Kroll's early career stats, despite a quieter rookie season, there is optimism about his growing growth and role headed into 2024. His participation in tight end university alongside some of the top tight ends in the league prepared him to thrive in this Broncos offense. As a fantasy football manager, you should be planning on this upcoming season, because he could be emerging as a late round flyer or steal, poised to enhance Denver's passing game with his combination of size, speed, and breakup potential. I have Greg Dulcich pegged as a late round sleeper. How much does this hinder his value, Schulte? What's your intuition tell you about the Broncos tight end room?
This one's tough, but kind of the same realm. I kind of think I might be lining with the guy who's getting the praise. Sean Payton was the coach last year, and didn't give this guy much opportunity. I know there was injuries and stuff, but like even when healthy, it wasn't quite there. And maybe Sean Payton doesn't like him. I don't know. Like, who's to say? But apparently he likes Kroll. And the first thing that comes to mind is the Jimmy Graham red zone stuff. So I'm not saying he's going to be out here dropping 10 touchdowns and be a premier tight end or anything, but hey, if this is a guy who can get that late, who might get out there and catch a couple balls and get us some red zone targets, it's probably worth a deep stash.
Yeah, especially with, Greg Dulci's injury history. He wasn't drafted by this regime. So, he's on like a really tight leash. And I like this Kroll praise, and we'll see what happens there. But somebody that you should be keeping your eye on as this offseason continues and as the, training camps open up, we shall see what happens in that Denver Broncos tight end room. And we're going to have a lot of that going on this offseason with these Broncos, because there's a lot of flux in their wide receiver room. There's a lot of flux in their running back room. And it'll be really interesting to see. So maybe that might be a team that we deep dive next week on the show, because that's some interesting, dynamics in that Broncos field there. So let's move on here and let's get into another team within that division, that AFC West division, and that is the Las Vegas Raiders. And Aiden O'Connell seems to be the top contender in the Las Vegas Raiders quarterback competition. Unlike many NFL teams, the Raiders find themselves in a QB battle. Aiden O'Connell, the current starter, is up against Gardner Minshew, a charismatic free agent known more for his backup roles and distinctive mustache. As of now, O'Connell has the edge for starting in that QB spot. Coach AP expressed confidence in O'Connell, giving him first-team snaps, a role he has taken on eagerly. Reports from training camp highlight O'Connell's improvement, noting his accuracy, his powerful throws have impressed defenders. Reviewing his 2023 stats, O'Connell slightly outperformed Minshew with higher touchdown rate and fewer interceptions. Looking forward to 2024, O'Connell has the potential to finish as a top 20 quarterback and could be a solid QB3 in Superflex leagues. With the Raiders coaching staff showing confidence in his development, O'Connell appears poised for a significant playing time this upcoming season. Our boy Biggs reported this 2 days ago. Do you agree with our friend Brendan? You think Aiden O'Connell will lead the charge for the Raiders in 2024, or do you think this is a better for the offensive players for the fantasy football Raiders, or do you think it's going to be Gardner Minshew?
Oh, it's got to be Aiden O'Connell, man. We've seen what Gardner Minshew is. It's not changing. Great backup. Like, if he was still the backup on the Jags, I'd be totally cool with it. But we know who he is. There's glimpses from O'Connell that he could easily be more than Gardner, and he may be more than Gardner now. So yeah, I think this is easy.
Yeah. So, that's something that you should be circling there, because these guys are going pretty late in drafts. So, if you're going to peg one, you might want to get the insurance poly and pick them both. But I think that Aiden O'Connell is gonna emerge there. He's a youngster. He has that upside, and he's been in that offense last year. So let's move on to George Kittle, and he's working to regain some weight loss this offseason. Kittle underwent core muscle surgery, resulting in a significant 30-pound weight loss. The surgery was necessary to address lingering core issues that Kittle sustained midway through last season. Fantasy managers should admire Kittle's unwavering toughness in his situation, although he faced multiple injuries throughout his career. Questions about his durability persist. Nevertheless, Kittle has consistently shown a strong commitment to being on the field whenever possible. What's your take on Kittle in 2024? You think he creeps back into the conversation of one of the top tight ends in fantasy football, or has that ship sailed with all the emerging talent in that offense and in that, the tight end landscape around the league?
Yeah, I think that ship sailed, man. 30, that is a significant amount of weight. And he is such a tenacious blocker. He's not going to stop doing that either. And when you're talking core muscle stuff, that's not a great combo. so many mouths to feed here. Even if Ayuk's gone, they're going to have Pearsall stepping in and still have Cohen. I don't know, man. I don't see him going back to that top 5 dude we've seen in the past. He's going to need a ton of volume, which is going to be tough to predict. And even in his some of his seasons past, he's really lived on like 3 games where he'll just absolutely blow up and, to carry his points per game average. So I just don't see that happening this year. So yeah, I'm fading on Kittle.
Yeah, and you mentioned he's going to have to rely on a huge amount of targets, and I don't think that's going to happen. And you have to rely on that last year. When you think of when Kittle has been really successful, it's usually when one or both Ayuk or Debo have sat out some time. And now when you bring in a guy like, Ricky Pearsall, and if none of those wide receivers get moved, that adds another catching option there, and it just further dilutes George Kittle's upside and his long-term range there. So let's get on to the last one here there, Schulze, before we leave our viewers for the evening. But this is what I'm really interested in getting your take on, because we've got a guy here that's a rookie coming into an offense with a couple veterans that are, prolific, have both finished in the top 10 wide receiver rooms in the past. And with Chris Godwin moving back to the slot, it's interesting to see with this hype going on. And we're going to be talking a little bit about Jalen McMillan, and he's, demonstrating early signs of progress, a promise. Expected to be a standout at 2023 at University of Washington alongside top 10 pick Rome Odunze. McMillan, it was overshadowed by his leg injury. Jalen Polk, outshone him. However, that setback allowed the Buccaneers to secure good value in McMillan. He's a skilled route runner, a good competitor. He's very intelligent. That's what Bowles commented on McMillan. He showcased his playmaking abilities during the offseason, and he's establishing some promise and connection with Baker Mayfield. He is poised to start the season as the wide receiver 3 behind veterans Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, who's now, like I mentioned, moving to the slot. McMillan's versatility was a key asset in college, excelling in both outside and in the slot. I think that's good for him moving forward in a new system, but also, these aging veterans, you never know, one injury could creep up and McMillan could be easily the number 2 target in that offense. So with all the competition in Tampa for targets, will there be enough to feed all the hungry receiving mouths in Tampa Bay? I know for one, you were really high on Chris Godwin in 2024, especially since he's heading back to that slot. We all know Mike Evans can't count. We can't count him out after 10 straight 1,000-yard seasons. Is this Jalen McMillan poised to make an impact his rookie season, Schulze?
I mean, let's look at this with some context here. In a vacuum, impossible to say, because what defines an impact here at this rookie year, right? At an average draft of about 95, I don't think it's going to take too much. So I'm smashing the heck out of this draft position, man. He's probably going to be the 3rd starter in 3 wide receiver sets. Even if he doesn't, he's not going to pass these other guys up in targets. Like, highly doubt that scenario plays out. However, there is still going to be room for a 3rd guy here and there, and potential for more playing time with injuries. Looking at some of the dudes ahead of him being drafted before him, that would easily take McMillan over: Devontae Walker, Rondell Moore, Odell Beckham, Jalen Tolbert, A.T. Perry, Elijah Moore, DJ Chark, Jalen Hyatt. I mean, there are loads of receivers going in front of this guy that have no business going in front of this guy. So at his cost, oh yeah, he's going to smash.
Yeah, he will smash at his cost, especially if he can, get around the 70 to 80 target range, which isn't outside of the realm of possibilities in that offense there. Yeah, I love it, Schulze. Thanks a lot for coming on the show today. You've been a great guest. With all that said, we've come to an end of another episode of Player Profiler today. I'm your host, Mike Lindberg, bringing you the freshest updates every Wednesday. Stick around as we continue to deep dive the world of Player Profiler. For exclusive content and even more updates, follow me on X at FFCanuck99. Thanks for hanging out with us today. Remember, tomorrow, Bradley Stalder is back for the Thursday night slot, so mark your calendars. Our YouTube channel is growing, and if you haven't already subscribed, be sure to do so. We are looking to crack 500 subscriptions before the end of the month, so anyone helps. Thanks to our guest Schultze for bringing the heat. You want to remind all our viewers what you're up to and where to find all your work, my friend.
Yeah, man, go find me on Twitter. It's at Schultze, except the L's a 1, so it's SCHU1TZY. I mainly tweet about the Jaguars. I make a lot of jokes. It's a very unserious place, like my brain is. So, yeah, it's a fun time. Come follow me there. And then for serious stuff, you can go look at the podcast. Go follow Fantasy Forecast, the Dynasty Pulse, and I'm jumping in with those guys. There's more of the serious me, but my Twitter page, it's like it does not reflect who I am actually. It's just like my impulses in my brain.
That's awesome, man. I appreciate it. Well, thanks, Schultze, for coming on the show. Thanks, everybody, for taking the time to watch the show, tune in, and we hope you have a great night. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. Peace out.
Hey, I want to thank you for being part of this broadcast. If you have any thoughts on it, leave a comment. If you enjoyed it, make sure you leave a like. And if you want to see more shows on the Player Profiler channel, subscribe to it. That's how we know you want more.